Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Amit Pal Singh. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi returns home after concluding the historic visits to Poland and Ukraine. Prime Minister reiterates India's willingness to contribute to facilitate an early return of peace in the region. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holds bilateral meeting with US Secretary of Defence Lloyd Austin in Pentagon, highlights various co-development and co-production opportunities in India. And hope floats as Hamas sends a delegation to Cairo to discuss the Gaza ceasefire talks. After successfully concluding his two-nation visit to Poland and Ukraine, Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned home on Saturday. During his landmark visit to Ukraine, Prime Minister Modi engaged in high-level talks with President Zelensky and exchanged 4 key agreements. Here's a recap of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Ukraine. Take a listen.
Wrapping up his successful two-nation visit to Poland and Ukraine, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned home on Saturday. Now let's revisit the highlights of Prime Minister Modi's impactful visit to Ukraine on Friday. In a historic move, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev, marking the first-ever visit by a top Indian leader to Ukraine. The bilateral meeting was held at the Mariinsky Palace, where Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support for dialogue and diplomacy to restore peace and stability.
मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मानवीय दृष्टिकोण से भी जिस प्रकार की मदद की आवश्यकता होगी, भारत हमेशा आपके साथ खड़ा रहेगा और 2 कदम आगे चलेगा.
During his visit, Prime Minister Modi also toured the multimedia martyrologist exposition on children at the National Museum of History of Ukraine. Accompanied by President Zelensky, he was deeply moved. As a gesture of respect, he placed a toy in their memory and expressed his deep sorrow over the tragic loss of young lives.
हमने जो दूसरा मार्ग चुना, वो दूसरा मार्ग है युद्ध से दूर रहने का. हम बहुत ही कन्विक्शन के साथ युद्ध से दूर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम तटस्थ थे. हम न्यूट्रल नहीं थे. हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का.
Prime Minister Modi also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at his statue in Kiev. He highlighted the enduring relevance of Gandhi's message of peace in addressing global challenges. The visit saw India and Ukraine also holding delegation-level talks. The leaders held discussions on trade, defense, pharmaceuticals, agriculture and education. India and Ukraine also exchanged 4 agreements in the field of agriculture and food industry, cooperation in the field of medical product regulation, Indian humanitarian grant assistance for high-impact community development projects, and in the field of cultural cooperation. India is providing medical assistance to Ukraine, which includes indigenous portable hospital Bhishma Cubes and other medical equipment.
As of today, we have agreed on the 4 documents that will be signed during this truly historic visit between Ukraine and India. These are regarding the medical field, the agricultural cooperation, humanitarian dimension, and I'm grateful for all of this, and I'm happy to see you, Mr. Prime Minister, and glory to Ukraine.
Ukrainian President praised PM Modi's Ukraine visit and expressed his gratitude.
A really very good meeting, and this historic one, and for us it's very important that this is the first Prime Minister from your very big country. I think it's historic moment, and I'm very thankful to Prime Minister for coming.
This landmark visit symbolizes a significant chapter in the diplomatic relations between India and Ukraine.
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, who's on a visit to Washington, D.C., interacted with leading U.S. defense companies at the Defense Industry Roundtable. During the meeting, Rajnath Singh invited them to accelerate Make in India program towards achieving Atmanirbharta or self-reliance in the defense sector. He met National Security Advisor of the United States, Jake Sullivan. Both the leaders shared their perspectives on key strategic matters of mutual interest. Rajnath Singh on Friday also met with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and reviewed and discussed ways to further deepen existing defense cooperation between the two countries.
Our bilateral relationship has also seen a growing convergence of strategic interests and enhanced defense, security and industrial cooperation. Secretary Austin, our leaders share an excellent rapport and are working together on several global issues, apart from the vast and growing bilateral agenda.
Earlier the day, Rajnath Singh also visited the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. and paid respects at the tomb of the unknown soldier. In an important development or a significant development, the United States has approved a possible foreign military sale to the government of India of anti-submarine warfare sonar buoys and related equipment for an estimated cost of $52.8 million. This proposed sale will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the U.S. by helping to strengthen the U.S.-India strategic relationship and improving the security of a major defense partner, which continues to be an important force for political stability, peace and economic progress in the Indo-Pacific and South Asia regions. The proposed sale will improve India's capability to meet current and future threats by enhancing its capacity to conduct anti-submarine warfare operations from its MH-60R helicopters. India will have no difficulty absorbing this equipment into its armed forces. The second round of the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable will take place in Singapore on Monday next week. The Indian ministers participating in the event will include Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. During their visit, the ministers will interact with their counterparts and will also call on Singaporean leadership. The India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable is a unique mechanism established to set a new agenda for the India-Singapore bilateral relations. Meeting aims to enable both sides to review various aspects of their strategic partnership and identify new avenues to further elevate and broaden it. Hamas negotiators arrived in Cairo on Saturday to hear about the latest round of Gaza ceasefire and hostage talks from mediators after the UN reported badly worsening humanitarian conditions with malnutrition soaring and polio discovered. Months of on-off talks have so far failed to produce a breakthrough in Gaza to free the remaining hostages seized by Hamas in the October 7th raid. Israeli negotiators were in Cairo on Thursday to meet mediators from the US, which has presented a bridging proposal aimed at resolving continued disputes. In the United States, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. abandoned his campaign on Friday and endorsed Republican Donald Trump. He ended a presidential bid that he began as a Democrat, trading on one of the most famous names in American politics. It was unclear whether Kennedy's endorsement would help Trump in the upcoming November 5th election. Kennedy said he would remove his name from the ballot in 10 battleground states likely to determine the outcome of the election and remain as a candidate in the other states. Kennedy said he met with Trump and his aides several times and learned that they agreed on the issues like border security, free speech and ending wars.
In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory. in the face of this relentless, systematic censorship and media control. I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me.
Meanwhile, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump thanked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for his endorsement, calling him a great guy.
We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody.
The Democratic National Convention has wrapped up in the U.S. city of Chicago, with Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepting the party's nomination for this year's election, becoming the first woman of color ever to top the ticket. Harris, who is of Indian descent, only launched her campaign weeks ago after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race, but she's already leaped in the polls with 73 days until the Americans take to the ballot box. Benji Haya reports.
Harris struck a measured tone on Thursday night, touching upon her ideas for the economy, immigration, abortion and foreign policy. But she did so in very broad strokes. Ultimately, this was more about presenting herself to the nation, her upbringing, her character. Despite her serving as vice president for almost 4 years, millions of voters here went into the convention unfamiliar with details of her background or what she'll offer in office. To win them over, she focused on the language of unity over division, saying she'd be a president for all Americans, putting country above party. As a former prosecutor, she drew a contrast with Trump, a convicted felon. She laid into what she says was the chaos and calamity of his first term, his efforts to subvert democracy, inspiring the crowd to chant, "We are not going back." That swell of support, that momentum, has carried her to a place few expected just weeks ago. But now comes the hard part. She'll have to answer very direct questions about policy positions come the first debate next month with Donald Trump, where she'll come up against a man notorious for evading, for disrupting, for insulting, and of course for exposing Joe Biden on such a scale on stage that he ultimately withdrew his candidacy. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And still to come up on this edition of DD India Live, 3 people killed and another 4 seriously injured in a knife attack in the German city of Solingen. And UN Secretary General calls for complete transparency in Venezuela elections.
Double Olympic medalist Manu Bhaker is with us. You have achieved something which has never happened before. Tell us, how big are these medals for you?
The value of the medal, I mean, coming from Tokyo, definitely it means a big deal for me.
Tell us the role of the government also, Manu.
Khelo India and top schemes are good.
You also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi after you won the medals. Must have been a proud feeling to meet him.
So I met him a couple of times and it's always inspiring. It always motivates us.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Amit Pal Singh. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his wife Olena Zelensky paid tribute to the fallen soldiers and attended a prayer for Ukraine on Saturday as Kyiv marks its Independence Day. The prayer ceremony was attended by heads of Orthodox and Greek Catholic churches, the head rabbi and the mufti of Crimea. Earlier, President Zelensky delivered a speech released on Saturday, marking Ukraine's 33rd Independence Day. In the video, Zelensky reiterated his plans for a response against Russia.
Та ми не дамо перетворити в сіру зону землі.
Whatever the enemy was bringing to our land has now returned to their home. And the one who wanted to turn our land into a buffer zone should think about preventing his country from becoming a buffer federation.
Лінії. Як жити? Яким шляхом йти?
And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Saturday congratulated Ukraine on its Independence Day and expressed his desire to further develop bilateral ties between the two nations. Congratulating his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba on the occasion, Dr. Jaishankar posted on X, and I quote, felicitations to Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and the government and the people of Ukraine on the occasion of their Independence Day. Look forward to further development of our bilateral ties, unquote. But the war rages on. Russia and Ukraine exchanged 115 prisoners of war from each side on Saturday after the UAE acted as an intermediary. It is the first such exchange since Ukraine launched a surprise attack into Russia's Kursk region on August 6th. That's the biggest attack inside Russian territory by a foreign power since the World War II. According to Russian Defense Ministry, the Russian servicemen swapped were captured in the Kursk region. All released Russian soldiers are now in Belarus and will receive medical treatment and rehabilitation upon their return to Russia. The ministry expressed gratitude for UAE's role in facilitating the prisoner swap. A manhunt is underway after an attacker armed with a knife killed 3 people in Germany. 8 were injured, 5 of them seriously. The police said in a statement on Saturday the incident occurred at about 9:40 GMT on Friday when the man attacked multiple people with a knife. The police said that the motive remains unclear, however. The attack occurred at a festival to honor the town's 50th anniversary. The lone suspect is on the run and a special police force has been deployed to the active manhunt. Solingen mayor expressed shock and grief after the stabbing attack.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday at this very time, a joyful festival is about to begin in the heart of our city. Yesterday evening, our hearts were torn apart. We in Solingen are full of shock and grief. What happened yesterday in our city has hardly let any of us sleep. The people of this city are moved. Many of those killed, injured and affected have family and friends in this city. I tried as best I could to make contact during the night and organize whatever I could. But the pain is immense.
The French president will hold a second day of discussions with party leaders on Monday as Emmanuel Macron tries to see if there could be a multi-party agreement on a new government after inconclusive election results last month. Macron met left-wing and centrist politicians on Friday, including Lucie Castetz, the leading left-wing candidate to be France's new prime minister. DD India correspondent Ross Cullen reports.
Friday marked the first of 2 days of negotiations at the Elysee Palace between Emmanuel Macron and the different party leaders. On Friday morning, local time, we did see the left-wing New Popular Front. Now, they are the alliance that won the election in terms of the greatest number of seats, although they fell well short of a majority. We saw them in attendance at the Elysee Palace. They were led by Lucie Castet. Now, she is the 37-year-old civil servant who headed up that delegation, and she is the name that has been put forward by the left wing to be the new French Prime Minister, and Emmanuel Macron has, for now, ruled out appointing her to that role. The current incumbent is Gabriel Attal. Now, the previous administration is remaining in place for now as a caretaker government. Emmanuel Macron saying he didn't want domestic political disruption when the eyes of the world were turned to Paris for the 2024 Olympics. But now that we have this gap in between the two games, he has gone for it and said it is time to act, although the left-wing have said that Emmanuel Macron has been procrastinating. Now, what is going to happen on Monday is that the National Rally will be the next major party to attend these talks. The far right were projected to win the election on July the 7th, the second round of the election, but in fact they finished third, although they do have the greatest number of MPs in terms of single party in the parliament. Jordan Bardella, the party leader, Marine Le Pen, the party figurehead, will be there with Emmanuel Macron on Monday, but it does seem to be difficult to envisage how the left-wing alliance that won the election or Emmanuel Macron's centrists who came second could agree to work alongside the Nationalist Populist Party in a future coalition government. Ross Cullen in Paris reporting for DD India.
On to Venezuela now. The US, along with countries in Europe and Latin America, rejected the certification by Venezuela's Supreme Court of Nicolas Maduro's presidential re-election on Friday. The deputy spokesperson of the US State Department, Vedant Patel, said that the court ruling lacks all credibility and discussions should be held on respectful and peaceful transition. He also warned that continued attempts to fraudulently claim victory for Maduro will only exacerbate the ongoing crisis, while Spain and Mexico continue to insist on a detailed breakdown of voting results. Venezuela's top court certified Maduro's disputed re-election to a third six-year term, which he welcomed as historic. Further, Maduro has called for the arrest of former Venezuelan presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. UN spokesperson Stephane Dujarric has said that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres continues to call for complete transparency and respect for human rights.
Secretary General takes note of the decision taken by the Supreme Court. We understand that the National Electoral Council has still not released the election results by polling stations. The Secretary General continues to call for complete transparency in that regard, and he reiterates his call for the full protection and respect of human rights and continues to urge all parties to resolve any electoral disputes through peaceful means.
Shifting focus to Asia Pacific now. As monsoon rains cause floods in eastern Bangladesh, at least 15 people have been killed and millions remain stranded, prompting mass evacuations. In striking visuals from the country, locals were seen climbing onto rescue boats to seek shelter in Feni, one of the worst hit districts of the country. And in India, incessant rainfall has wreaked havoc in the northeastern state of Tripura. Lakhs of people are affected due to heavy rainfall, floods and landslide incidents. The troubles for the state are likely to escalate as the Met Department has forecast very heavy rainfall over Tripura over the next 6 to 7 days. A red alert has also been issued for the state on 25th of August, forecasting extremely heavy rainfall. Rescue and relief operations are in full pace as Indian Air Force Mi-17 and ALH helicopters continue to relentlessly provide relief operations, and with the NDRF personnel inducted into the disaster-struck areas. Operating from Agartala, the helicopters airdropped over 4,000 food packets to stranded locals. A total of 28 tons of relief material has been airlifted till now for flood-affected Tripura. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Jalgaon in the state of Maharashtra on Sunday to distribute certificates to 1.1 million new Lakhpati Didis. The Prime Minister will also talk to Lakhpati Didis who earn 100,000 rupees or more annually. Various schemes are implemented aimed at empowering women in the country. One such scheme that has attracted considerable attention is the Lakhpati Didi initiative, which aims to provide financial assistance to women entrepreneurs and help them achieve financial independence. And now a look at some other stories making the news today. A private helicopter crashed near the Pod village in Pune in Maharashtra on Saturday while en route to Hyderabad from Mumbai. 4 people were on board, out of which the captain sustained injuries. The helicopter crashed due to technical fault and adverse weather conditions. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan released an e-magazine, Sapnon Ki Udaan, on Friday to commemorate the first anniversary of the landing of Chandrayaan-3. The magazine contains poetry, essays, stories from around the country. The Ministry of Coal launched a national safety portal and targets zero accidents in the coal mines. Secretary of the Ministry of Coal also reviewed the National Coal Mine Safety Portal to evaluate the safety conditions of the coal companies. The portal represents advancement in safety management and allows prompt reporting of the accident within 24 hours. That's it then in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Amit Pal Singh from my entire team here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India Live.